What an interesting morning it has been for those of us on this committee and on Facebook. So welcome. Representative Martinez, you are recognized to present your bill. I see that there is a full committee substitute. If there's no objections, we will adopt that. And House Bill 1920.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's PCS 2. You want me to explain it?
Yeah, would you explain your PCS?
Yeah, PCS 2 is simply prohibits beer brewers or importers from requiring certain items in business agreements with local distributors. I yield for questions.
Without objection, we'll adopt the PCS as a working draft. Are there any questions? No questions. Seeing no questions, is there any debate? No debate. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Seeing there's no debate. Staff, will you open the queue for a vote? Representative Eccles votes aye.
What? No. The good one. The real good one.
If you would like to change your vote, please do so now. Do so now. Staff, please close the queue.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
With 7 ayes, 0 nays, Representative Martinez, your bill has passed committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Representative Martinez, you're recognized to present House Bill 1922.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is a PCS for this as well, I believe.
Without objection, we'll adopt the PCS. PCS is adopted.
Thank you very
explain
much.
your PCS.
Okay. The PCS for House Bill 1922 just simply prohibits any company or common carrier from knowingly delivering any shipping container that contains alcoholic beverages unless it complies with provisions and rules associated with the direct wine shipper's permit. It also puts fines into place when those are violated. I will tell the committee I have agreed to strike title on this bill as soon as possible. I yield for questions.
Members, are there any questions? Representative Hilbert, recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the discussion, and I guess my question is, it seems like the problem that's trying to solve is with producers not paying the tax. And it seems to me, I mean, you're going to strike title, obviously, and continue to work on it, but just my concern is the issues with the producer, but the bill puts the fix on the middleman who isn't the one that's causing the problem. So what do you have to say to address that concern?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the concern is duly noted. That's the reason for striking title. I want to find an amicable way that we could solve this problem without creating such a burden on that middleman that it makes it impossible for them to do their job.
You recognized for follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a thought, I'm just honestly thinking out loud here. Our first year in, we passed House Bill 1427, and it was targeted at the Oklahoma Tax Commission to improve our out-of-state enforcement. And just a suggestion, something to look at. Maybe we can look at that wing of the tax commission and the enforcement side of it to do something to fix the problem instead of hurting the people in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. OTC has been involved in this conversation that I've been having for a couple of years, and will continue to be. So thank you for the input.
Representative, one more question. Am I right or wrong? Are there some carriers that have agreed that this isn't the worst thing, and maybe there are other carriers that are against it completely? Are some of the carriers on board, or at least would work with you in some way, or is everyone against it?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I don't want to overstate. I mean, they made it pretty clear that they don't like the current form. There might be one or two out there that are okay with it, but I don't want to speak for them. I know there's obviously some objections. That's why I'm wanting to strike the title to work on this and try to find something that would work for everybody.
But they would be willing to still deliver alcohol, wine in the state of Oklahoma?
I believe after having some negotiations and working on this bill, they will be able to. If this current language were to become law, I will just be honest with you, they've stated that some of the bigger companies would have some headaches and problems. That's why we need to do some work on the bill.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Representative Eccles, recognized for a question.
Representative, this question is not really aimed at you. You're just up there, so I can stand on my soapbox for a second.
Yeah.
Would you believe that regardless on how I vote on these, with all that is in me, I'm starting to hate these alcohol fights and then bringing them fights to the legislature and not working them out amongst themselves, and that I think everybody should be on notice no matter how I vote on this stuff? I can't stress enough how I hate these alcohol fights. If I haven't mentioned it, I absolutely despise them. I would assume no matter how I vote on any of these, coming to talk to me in my office, because I'm inclined to just put nothing on the floor.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Floor Leader. I will publicly serve this as notice that these are the last Martinez alcohol bills you will see. So I'm on the same page as you are. Thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Will there be discussion or debate? Seeing no discussion or debate, staff, please open the vote queue for a vote. If you wish to change your vote, please do so now. Staff, please close the queue.
6 ayes, 1 nay.
Representative Martinez with 6 ayes, 1 nay. We declare your bill to have passed committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee besides Representative Van Gator.
Representative McDougall, you're recognized to present House Bill 2213.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Floor Leader, I'll tell you, this is the best alcohol bill you'll hear all day.
Seeing there is a PCS on this, without objection, we'll adopt the PCS as the working order. Would you explain the PCS?
This is actually a freedom bill, believe it or not. We've got a business in the state of Oklahoma that is not allowed to sell its own product. The distilleries of Oklahoma who present actually can't sell their own whiskey at their distillery. It can be sold elsewhere, but not at their own. 49 other states allow distilleries to sell on-premise and off-premise, many of them. So this bill I just ask you to pass so that these guys can do what they need to do to grow their own business and develop their own community through sales of their own alcohol.
Members, are there any questions on the bill? Representative Eccles, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, in typical alcohol fashion, can I assume at least half of the industry is against this bill and at least half of the industry is for this bill?
Actually, we've talked to distillers, we've also talked to distributors, and I wouldn't say they're jumping up and down for it, but they've agreed not to push against this. So,
Like many other bills in here, there was lots of PCSs, so we moved to adopt PCS 2. Without objection, we'll do that.
yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Representative Hilbert, you recognized for a question.
So since we're the only state that doesn't allow this, would you consider us first in the country or 50th? Just
Yeah, we'd be 50th right now.
okay.
The Vice Chair has a question. Go for it.
So basically, you're just trying to get, correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
you know, the wine industry and the beer industry in the state of Oklahoma, if it's produced here, they're already able to do that, correct? So you're just trying to get the distilleries in check with that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Seeing no further questions, any discussion or debate? We have a motion and a second. Staff, please open the queue for a vote. If you would like to vote, please do so now. If you'd like to change your vote, do so. Staff, please declare the vote. Close the queue.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
With 8 ayes, 0 nay, Representative McDougall, your bill is passed committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Eccles, you are recognized to present House Bill 2646. And I see there are several amendments on your bill. Clerk, will you read the first amendment?
That's religion and press.
Yeah. Ooh, wait, the First Amendment? We'll skip reading the First Amendment. Representative McDougall, would you explain the First Amendment?
Yes, the amendment that I filed allows for a 3-day non-resident medical marijuana license. So if another state has a medical marijuana license where they've already had to see a doctor, get a medical license, we're going to allow that individual on an approved state to walk into a dispensary and they can get online, pay a $75 fee, and hopefully it'll print out a 3-day pass to allow them to purchase on that 3-day pass. I yield for questions, move for adoption.
So if you'll just ask on that. Are there any questions on the amendment? No questions. We'll adopt the amendment as is, and we'll move to the Second Amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Clerk, will you read the Second Amendment, please? We're not going to. We have lots of amendments. You want to skip reading them? Representative Eccles, you recognize.
Mr. Speaker, members, I think you're familiar with these amendments. They are all agreed. I move to accept amendment number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Not number 5. Number 5 and number 1 were the same.
I move to accept number 2, 3, 4, and 6.
We have a motion and a second. Without objection, we'll adopt the amendments, and we'll move to the bill. Representative, you recognize to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. In true committee fashion, I've made sure half the people hate this bill and half the people like it. No, this is the OMMA request bill. Move adoption. Yield for questions.
Do we have any questions on the bill? Seeing no questions, we have a motion and a second. There'll be discussion or debate. No discussion or debate. Staff, please open the queue for a vote. Representative Fettgetter? All right. If you wish to change your vote, please do so now. Staff, please declare the vote.
8 ayes, 0 nay.
With 8 ayes, 0 nay, Representative Eccles, we declare your bill to have passed. I'll do mine last. So we'll move on to Canada's bill. Representative Canada, you're recognized to present House Bill 2511.
I'll present from here if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2511, essentially what it does is it prevents foreign knockoffs.
First, we need to, there's an amendment. Would you recognize to explain your amendment? And it's a PCS. So we need to adopt the PCS as a working draft. We'll do that without objection. We'll adopt the PCS. All right, you're recognized to explain the PCS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill helps prevent knockoffs in the vaping industry from being on the shelves in Oklahoma to protect the welfare of our citizens. Yield to questions.
Do we have any questions? No questions. We have a motion and a second. There will be any debate. With no discussion or debate, staff, please open the queue for a vote. Representative Rowe and Representative Fettgetter, would you like to vote? Representative Rowe's aye. Representative Fettgetter votes aye. If you wish to change your vote, please do so now. Staff, please close the vote and declare the vote.
8 ayes, 0 nay.
With 8 ayes, 0 nay, Representative Kennedy, thank you for coming. Your bill has passed committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, except for Representative Fettgetter.
Representative Strom, you are recognized to present House Bill 1097, the only bill without a committee substitute or a PCS. Thank you, or an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, House Bill 1097 allows licensed small brewers to sell the product at each of their licensed premises. Same small businessman, same small brewer, same license holder, sell the same product on their own licensed premises. We have 3 tier system alcohol.
I do have a question. Representative Hilbert, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, if someone shows up at one of these facilities, isn't the expectation that the beer was brewed right there locally? And so I guess I support the bill. That's one concern that comes to my mind. And do you have a response to that?
I have a semi-response to that. It would still be at their own brewery, the same own brewery. So in the case of, say, Prairie, you're still getting a Prairie product. Now, if we want to move on in the future and just decipher to determine which of their breweries it was done at and somehow label that or do it, we can come back to that in the future. But right now, I'd like to give these guys that are making this and doing this, these small businessmen, the opportunity to sell their product.
Any other questions? Representative Bennett, you're recognized for a question.
I guess my first question is, when I push this white button, does that matter to anyone else? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Would you believe, to Representative Hilbert's question, would you believe that oftentimes breweries that have just started out may be borrowing other people's equipment and brewing their beer at a different brewery, and then it's canned and it's brought in there and it's sold at their brewery? And one would assume that the beer was brewed there, but oftentimes, as they're starting out, it's not. But it has not been a negative. It has not had a negative impact on the industry or any person or customer. So, would you agree that I understand what you're trying to say, but it's actually, it goes on and will continue to?
Okay, I would agree. Thank you for the question.
Seeing no further questions, we have a motion and a second. Will there be discussion or debate? Seeing no debate, members wishing to vote, please do so now. Staff, open the queue. Representative Roberts votes aye. If you wish to change your vote, please do so now. Please declare the vote.
9 ayes, 0 nays.
With 9 ayes, 0 nay, Representative Strom, declare your bill have passed committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Representative McIntyre, you are recognized to explain House Bill 2126.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I
If it's
see
okay.
there's a PCS. We will adopt the PCS without objection. We will adopt it. You're recognized to explain your PCS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for getting these bills on the agenda today. House Bill 2126 creates a grocery store and convenience store spirits license, and it sets the fee schedule for the license. Yield to questions.
Are there any questions on the bill? I have a question on the bill, I guess. So is there anyone that's come out against this bill? I mean, it was added very late.
What alcohol bill in this building doesn't have people come out against it, especially at the last minute? So yes, there are definitely folks opposed to this, yes.
Representative Rowe, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if these products are being sold in a convenience store, does that mean there's availability to those products 24 hours a day, whereas a liquor store, they're cut off at 9 o'clock and holidays?
They would, I assume, I'm just assuming, they would be subject to the same rules as like liquor stores and whatnot, so they could not sell after a certain period of time.
Representative Rowe, you're recognized for follow-up.
I have just a little bit of concern that may not be enforced very well. Do you see that as maybe a problem?
Definitely could be a problem.
Representative Roberts, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, because I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. So we're creating a license, a retail license, correct?
Yes.
Okay. With that being the case, so somebody from California can come into Oklahoma and have a wholesale license out there, or retail or whatever, and then come here and have another license. Can I have a wholesale license here and go to California?
That's a different bill.
That's
a different bill.
What is it? Okay. All right, then perfect. Let's go with this.
But I'll be happy to answer that question on the other bill.
Okay.
Are there any more questions, members? Seeing Representative Eccles, you're recognized for a question. Representative Eccles waives his question. Representative Hilbert, you're recognized for a question.
Just so everybody's clear which bill we're talking about, this is the bill for spirits in grocery stores, correct?
It creates a license for spirits to be sold in grocery stores and convenience stores.
You're recognized for follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If this passed, what would right now, liquor stores, there are things they can sell that no one else can. Would we still have that distinction anymore if this were to pass?
Probably not, but we did open up what liquor stores could sell, ancillary products that they could sell, so we opened that up for them. So what's good for the goose may be good for the gander.
Representative Eccles, you're recognized for a question.
If this bill were to pass, what is, say, 3 things that a liquor store could sell that a convenience store couldn't?
Nothing. They would probably be able to be on equal playing field at that
You're
point.
recognized for follow-up.
Well, you said they'd be on equal playing field, but there's a bunch of things that convenience stores can sell that liquor stores can't, right?
That's correct.
Recognized for follow-up.
I hear where you're going. I know where you're going. Yeah.
So is there's so many things going through my head that I think are funny that will get me in trouble. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I'm probably in the mood I'm in.
Your point is well taken. There are certain limitations definitely on liquor stores in the amount of product they can sell other than spirits and wine. And so we definitely need to look at that if we wanted to have some parity.
Recognized for follow-up.
Would you be cool, your people be cool if I put on a rider that said, say, liquor stores to make up for it could sell gas at no profit? Don't answer that. Of course you wouldn't.
Is that a rhetorical question?
That was a rhetorical question, Representative.
But yeah, it's a fair point, Leader Eccles, and it's one that we need to really think about before this bill moves forward.
Any more questions? Representative Bennett, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you. I saw it. Thank you. Okay, so.
I'm right here.
Oh, hey. So the conversation around alcohol modernization a while ago, opponents were worried about liquor stores surviving. And to the previous questioner's point, we tried to sort of make up for lost ground by allowing them to sell more stuff, which is great. Now, I like generally what we're trying to do, but some of these points have been brought up that make a little bit of sense to me. I'm concerned that we are going to further hurt the liquor stores. And the first time, I kind of rejected those arguments because I thought, well, they'll still be able to sell the spirits, and there'll be people that want to come to get specific whiskeys. And I have a local liquor store that I'll ask them for specific stuff, and they can get it and bring it in. That's the big value for it for me now, and so I am a little bit worried for them. So is this going to be a work in progress? Are they at the table?
Yeah, no. We will. This is just a starting point to get the conversation started. Any policy that we create in this building will have a ripple effect, and you guys are able to see, and you called out some of the ripples that could be affected by this bill or what could occur because of this bill. And I just want to keep the conversation open and dialogue going, and let's see if there's a path forward on this.
Are there any more questions? Okay. Seeing we have a motion and a second, do we have any discussion or debate? Seeing no discussion or debate, staff, will you please open the queue for a vote?
Sometimes it catches you. Sometimes it catches you.
What you guys need to remember is I have 2 chances to kill this bill.
Anyone wishing to change their vote?
I've never voted no on McIntyre bill.
All right, staff, close the queue.
5 ayes, 4 nay.
With 5 aye, 4 nay, Representative Representative McIntyre, we declare your bill to have passed. Representative McIntyre, you're recognized to present House Bill 2135.
Okay, the long-awaited bill that's received, I think we do have a PCS.
There is a PCS. Without objection, we'll adopt the PCS as the working draft. That'll be the order. You're recognized to present your PCS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, thank you for putting this bill on the agenda. Members, House Bill 2135. Hold on. It cuts red tape for some Oklahoma companies. It allows Oklahoma retail licensees to have ownership in out-of-state manufacturing companies as long as the Oklahoma retailer does not offer their out-of-state manufactured products for sale in their Oklahoma retail locations. I yield to questions.
Members, are there any questions? Seeing no questions, we have a motion. We have a second? Oh, sorry, we have a question. Representative Roberts, you're recognized for a question.
Just the question I had on the last bill that I thought was this bill. Hey, they're the exact same name, so they get thrown out there last minute. Okay, so I'm an Oklahoma company. Can I own licensing in other states? The exact same thing we're trying to do here. Is that reciprocal in other states?
I am not sure about that. I don't know what other states' laws are on this.
Because, I mean, if the answer is no, then I can't be for this.
So let me tell you, I have people with me who can talk to some of this stuff. The situation that we have here is we have a company with stores here in Oklahoma, and they bought an Italian vineyard, a winery, before alcohol modernization. When alcohol modernization took place, it said you can only have one license. You can't have a manufacturer's license and a retail license. So they were like, what in the heck do we do? And they called Abel, and Abel told them, well, you need to divest out of either your Oklahoma stores or the winery. And so what they ended up having to do is restructure their whole company, create a trust, and put all the Oklahoma stores in a trust. It's been hugely problematic. And we are just making it really hard for any retail licensee to sell alcohol in this state. We're prohibiting them from investing in other businesses out of state, whether they're manufacturers. And so I don't think it's good for business. I don't think it's good for creative capital and building business. So that's why I'm running the bill.
You're recognized for a follow-up.
One more. Is this the final language, be all, everything that's in this piece of legislation? Is there a willingness to change, move, to work with everybody, or is this where we're at?
Representative Roberts, have you ever known me not to work and be willing to strike a deal? I'm willing to work with this on anybody who wants to work with it, as long as we're moving in the same direction and somebody just doesn't want to straw man it and just try to dump the whole bill. This is something that needs to be taken care of for Oklahoma business.
You didn't accept my gas.
You didn't amend it, Mr. Floor Leader.
Members, are there any more questions? Representative Cornwell, you're recognized for a question.
Representative, you and I discussed a little bit of this, and I see where you're going with this, and I understand, but we have a three-tier system, and the reason, what I understand, the reason the three-tier system was set up was to try to keep from creating a monopoly. It would give local small businesses a chance to compete. By passing this legislation, are we somehow compromising that system and maybe going back before the system was even set up?
Thank you for that question. I think it's an important question, and I think it's one that I can answer pretty succinctly. We're not doing anything to the three-tier system with this bill. The three-tier system will be unharmed. If this company wants to import their wine from the Italian wineries, if they're allowed to have 2 licenses or whatnot, if they're allowed to import that wine in, they will have to import it through a supplier, a distributor, who would then sell that wine. Now, I've prohibited them from selling this wine in their own locations, so they can't even buy it from the distributor. Well, they might be able to buy it from the distributor, but they can't just import it in and sell it in their locations. They wouldn't anyway. We're talking $400 bottles of wine here. and they're a convenience store. So we wouldn't see that happen, but I've prohibited that. So it doesn't touch the three-tiered system at all. And unless you can show me how the mechanism that this bill would tear apart that three-tiered system, which I have my own opinion on anyway, I'll be glad to hear it. But just a feeling that it might is, for me, not substantial to vote no.
You're recognized for follow-up.
So, first of all, would you be willing to strike title on this to have a chance to work on it a little bit? And here's, in theory, I understand what you're saying, but we also had laws that didn't allow direct shipping of wine to a residence and that kind of stuff, and it's we all know it's being done on a regular basis, and we were trying to do something to help with that. So if you would be willing to strike title, I would love to work with you on this legislation.
Hey, thank you for that. And I'm more than willing to strike the title and work with anyone who wants to work on getting this bill moving forward. And honestly, you mentioned the mail order wine. I think Oklahomans, when they voted for alcohol modernization, fully expected to be able to order wine to come to their house. Now, you want to talk about something that damages the three-tier system, that would be it, not this bill. Thank you.
Representative Bennett, you're recognized for a question.
I wave.
You're good. Are there any other questions? Seeing no other questions, we have a motion and a second. Will there be any discussion or debate? Seeing no discussion or debate, staff, please open the queue for a vote. If you wish to change your vote, please do so now. Staff, close the vote. Declare the vote.
9 ayes, 0 nays.
With 9 ayes, 0 nay, Representative McIntyre, we declare your bill to have passed.
Thank you, committee members. I thank you for the questions. I think they're important questions, and you have my commitment that I will strike title if it's not already off on this. I'll get that done, and we'll try to move forward and negotiate this thing out. Appreciate it, and thank you for letting me get fired up today.
Representative Fettgetter, you are recognized to present House Bill 2004. There is a PCS. Without objection, we'll adopt the PCS as a working draft. That's the order. Representative Fettgetter, you're recognized to explain the PCS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe there's an amendment.
There's also an amendment. You're recognized to explain your amendment.
Okay.
This amendment is to, it's a friendly amendment to ensure that the negotiations going on between the state and a contract holder with OMMA, the ability to continue to negotiate in good faith.
Representative Fettgetter, you recognized for a question or
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
an explanation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to help my good friend, Representative Bennett here. So currently, Leader Eccles, myself, have been in negotiations on the RFID issue with Metric. It's my understanding that OMMA and Metric are not real happy about the language in this bill, even though neither one of them have personally come to me and discussed that. So we are going to strike this language out so that we don't shut down negotiations on this particular issue with the RFID tags, and but that issue could be added back in as an amendment if 2000 floor were to hit the floor.
Representative Eccles, you're recognized for a question on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you believe, Representative Bennett, I don't know that I've ever had the opportunity to ask you a question about something you were presenting, and I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity. So I want to, in the vein of the questions I get from you, I want to keep it on the amendment. What do you think about the weather outside today?
Thank you. This amendment is going to allow us to continue to have a conversation. And I know, from last week to this week, it's been wild, and I know that. We're going to find a happy medium, okay? And also, for the record, You control whether you have the ability to ask me questions on the floor by
It is
scheduling my
it is
bills.
Thursday afternoon. I just want to remind you guys that Representative Roberts, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this piece of legislation, does it strengthen our amendment? Does it strengthen or does it weaken our enforcement on medical marijuana?
It strengthens our ability to continue having conversations with Metric and OMMA on the issue of monopolizing RFID tags.
Without objection, we'll adopt the amendment. The amendment is adopted. Representative Fetgetter, you're recognized to now explain your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, last session, you graciously stayed till about midnight on the last night of session, I believe it was. I ran House Bill 3228. It was originally the OMMA bill. Because of COVID, we had to put a lot of other stuff in it. It became just the omnibus marijuana bill. You all passed it off the House floor unanimously, almost, or with a supermajority vote. Passed it in the Senate with supermajority vote. Governor vetoed it. We didn't override the veto, so here we are now with another huge marijuana omnibus bill. So with that being said, there are a lot of things in here. The governor vetoed the bill last year because of delivery. I have taken delivery out of this bill. There are other changes in here. There will be more amendments. I need to keep this bill moving.
Representative Rowe, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 14, when we're talking about who can grant a medical marijuana license, I'm a little curious about a podiatrist. Can you explain that?
Can you give me the line you're looking at specifically, please?
Line 13 on page 14.
Oh, this is for recommendation. Yes, podiatric medical examiners have for the past 2 years been able to make recommendations on medical marijuana. Yeah, I'm not sure why they have that underlined. That's been in statute now for 2 years. I was the take your first step forward legislator of the year like 2 years ago over that. I'll have to get, it's probably a Scribner's error.
Representative Fetgetter, you have agreed to strike title on this to keep it moving forward. Is that correct?
I have agreed that if we determine title needs to be struck, we will do that. Yes.
We'll take that as affirmative. Are there any other questions on the bill? Seeing no further questions, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Will there be any discussion or debate? Seeing no discussion or debate, staff, please open the queue for a vote. Fetgetter votes aye. Representative Fetgetter. Representative Bennett, do you wish to vote? If you wish to change your vote, please do so now. Staff, please close the queue and declare the vote.
8 aye, 1 nay.
With 8 aye, 1 nay, Representative Fetgetter, we declare your bill has to pass committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
All right. Now we're on 2659. Yep.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you are recognized to present House Bill 2659. It looks like there's a PCS. Without objection, we will adopt PCS 2 as a working draft. You're recognized to explain your PCS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, House Bill 2659 adds topicals as a dosage form and allows patients in their possession of more than 72 ounces of marijuana if that 72 ounces of marijuana came off the 6 plants they are licensed to have. I moved for adopt, yield for questions.
Are there any questions? Representative Hilbert, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and apologies, I'm not an expert on marijuana by any means, but floor leader put me on this committee. But I do have a question. How does this relate to the bill that Leader Eccles passed a few years ago on topical marijuana? Is this the same type product, or is this a different product altogether?
As far as I know, there currently doesn't list topical as a dosage form that we can use, and it is being used. So we need to make sure that we include it as a legal form.
Are there any other questions on the bill? Seeing no further questions, do I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Do I have a motion and a second? And a second? Having a motion and a second, will there be any discussion or debate? Seeing no discussion and debate, staff, please open the queue for voting. Members wishing to vote or change their vote, do so now. Staff, declare the vote.
8 aye, 1 nay.
With a vote of 8 aye, 1 nay, I declare your bill to have passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you are recognized to present your bill 2660. I believe there is an amendment on this. Is that correct?
So there's a PCS. So first adopt the PCS as the working draft, and then we'll go to the amendment.
So looks like there's a PCS on this. Without objection, we'll adopt the PCS as a working draft. You are recognized to explain your PCS. Wait, back up just a little bit. We have an amendment on this. You are recognized to explain your amendment.
So this bill was amended this morning. I don't know if you guys got as many phone calls as I did, but I was tasked with working with the medical community and the industry and patients on figuring out the best and safest way to control the testing environment in the state of Oklahoma. I have come up with, I had dropped some language yesterday to start negotiations and to bring this to the forefront. And we will continue to work with both the patients and the community. We'll hold meetings if we need to. But this bill basically tiers the current testing as all 10 pounds of everything, and this actually increases from 10 pounds of cured marijuana to 25. It decreases the amount of distillate that can be tested at a time from 10 pounds to 4 liters. And then it allows OMA to promulgate rules as far as testing of each individual type of product at the final product level. And I went ahead and put in there a section that basically won't allow them to force testing on more than 200 grams of on less than 200 grams of THC. And with Floor Leader Eccles' bill earlier that brought into play process validation, It should be much more efficient and, with OMA's oversight, safer for patients. So I move to adopt and yield for questions.
Is there any questions on the amendment? Representative Fettgatter, you are recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, will you be willing to strike title if necessary at some point as we talk through this issue?
I absolutely will continue to work on this, and if striking title is necessary, we will do that. I have a pretty large group of individuals that seem to be somewhat satisfied with what we have, but if we need to, like I said, we'll continue to work with industry and the patients of Oklahoma. Their safety is our number one concern, so yes, I will.
Representative Bennett, you're recognized for a question on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chair. Can you get into a bit of detail about the problems with testing that have come up so far and sort of the general direction we're trying to head in to fix those?
Yeah, so originally I was somewhat a part of the 10-pound issue that came up. It was brought to us by industry, and it was applied a little bit more liberally than initially we had thought it would be. So basically, I don't know. I know you've toured these facilities, and so I know you're on board. But for everyone that hasn't, 10 pounds of dried product isn't a lot, but it's a lot of testing, and so the overburden there is something that we were looking to alleviate. And then when you get into the distillate, 10 pounds is a lot. I'm looking to have a little bit more testing, not prohibitive from anyone that entered the industry based on what what the law was or how it read. But first of all, being a healthcare professional, patient safety is of high concern, and I think it should be the number one concern both for the industry and for us, because if there ever was an incident that hurt patients in Oklahoma, it'd be detrimental to the industry as well. So from there on the final batch size, the 200 grams, currently it's 10 pounds. So 10 pounds of gummy bears versus 10 pounds of chocolate brownies with caramel in them are it's an extreme difference in the amount of THC in those products, but we're doing it by total weight, which I think is not good for the industry, not good for the patient, increases cost on some, and allows others to do a lot more, sell a lot more product. And so by letting OMA go through those and individually pick out whether it's crystal or gummy bears or candy bars, that they'll be able to break that down. But I have put some safety in there for the industry as well with the 200 grams of THC per batch. Does that answer your question?
Are there any other questions on the amendment? Seeing no further questions on the amendment, do I have a motion to adopt the amendment?
You pass.
I have a motion and a second. If no objections, we'll adopt the unanimous consent. Are there any questions on the bill as amended? You pass. Having a do pass and a second, will there be any discussion or debate? Seeing no discussion or debate, staff, please open the queue for a vote. Representative Eccles votes aye. Representative Fettgatter votes aye. Members wishing to vote or change their vote, do so now.
Davis
votes aye. Close the vote.
8 aye, 1 nay.
Having a vote of 8 aye, 1 nay, I declare your bill to have passed.
Thank you, Chairman.
Turn it back over to the
members.
Chairman.
Thank you, industry, for all your support. That'll conclude the meeting for the day. We're adjourned.